Okay, now that you've seen our overview of the watershed and you've seen our presentation regarding what we think the problems are and the solutions are, what we're going to do is give you a visual overview of the solutions as we see it, so you have a little better understanding about what we're talking about. The first solution we're going to start with is we start at the north, and we're going to talk about enlarging the gates on the West Atchafalaya Spillway Levee on Bayou Catawba, which is right south of US 190 on what we call the Henderson Levee again. Okay, and here we're going to zoom in right here and we'll look at it here. Okay, so what we're talking about doing here is making these gates larger right here where they go through the levee to allow water to flow out of Bayou Catawba into the basin. And then the other thing right there in that same area is put some gates here on the Bar Pit Canal to allow water to go down the Bar Pit Canal. Significantly different level normally in the bayou and in the Bar Pit Canal. It'll drain pretty quick if they got some big gates. So in addition to doing this construction work, of course, a process would have to be put in place. If there's an impending large rain event, you know, a tropical storm, hurricane, etc., that these gates are opened and the levels in Bayou Catawba are lowered ahead of time to restore some retention in Catawba, and also provide a drain out into the basin and down the Bar Pit Canal to Lake Falls Point. In fact, the first couple solutions we're going to talk about is trying to get water down to Lake Falls Point, which we see as a natural floodplain for our area outside the west side of the levee area. Okay, the second thing we're going to look at is we're going to talk about adding a canal and a control structure to allow, again, an outlet of Cypress Island swamp down to provide a channel down to south of the Keystone Dam to allow with the control structure to allow Cypress Island to be able to drain to Lake Falls Point via the Bayou Teche down here south of the Keystone Dam. If we could get a channel the size of, say, the Vermilion River, a 10 by 100 foot channel, it would provide a secondary drain that whenever Cypress Island fills with water, it doesn't all have to come back down to Vermilion. And again, a process would have to be put in place to open up these controls. So whenever that water starts going into Lake in the Cypress Island Lake Martin area, that it starts coming on out here and going toward Keystone Dam and correspondingly down to Lake Falls Point, which again is our floodplain. Another thing we could do is add some control gates in the Keystone Dam. We'll talk about that. Okay, and we'll zoom in on that. Okay, and I believe that was a recommendation after the flood of '93 by the Corps, was to provide some control gates in the Keystone Dam. Right now it's got a fixed 10-foot weir that would allow opening those gates during an impending flood event again to allow water to go down the Teche down to Lake Falls Point. It also could facilitate lowering the level in Bayou Teche ahead of an impending event. So that brings us to our last recommended solution. And we'll take a look at that. And that's maintenance dredge the river. During the flood event of 2016, Harold and I floated the river with a precision depth finder, and with Surrey Street was still at 10 feet. And what we found was that there were some areas that the river was only 3.5 feet deep at best. Extensive shoaling, and that's not true of the whole river, but there's evidently shoals in the river at different places. and those shoals would have to be removed, could be removed by dredging the river, which could restore the original design channel capacity of 10 by 100 when the Corps first dredged the river back in 1950 or so. So with that, that's our 4 main key points to fix the problem here. Would like to open it up for any questions you may have regarding our presentation or our recommendations here. And then we'll have some speakers, some esteemed speakers from some of the organizations that's dealing with this issue after we finish fielding the questions and answers. Thank you for your time and your attention.